Introductions of aesthetics. The first use of the term aesthetics is something like its modern sense is commonly attributed to Alexander Baumgarten in 1735, although earlier studies in the 18th century by writers such as the 3rd Earl of Shaftesbury, Anthony Ashley Cooper, Joseph Addison, Jean-Baptiste Beudant, and Francis Hutcheson. The first systematic inquiries into aesthetic in its familiar sense as a distinct branch of philosophy. Undoubtedly, the 18th century saw the flourishing of inquiries into beauty, taste, the sublime, and genius, but few would be content to start a history of aesthetics in that century. For many centuries earlier, going back to ancient Greece, there had been philosophical reflection, even if only in a piecemeal fashion, on poetry, painting, music, and the beautiful. These reflections had an enormous influence on later philosophizing.
What is aesthetics? Aesthetics, also spelled aesthetics, a philosophical study of beauty and taste, is closely related to the philosophy of art, which is concerned with the nature of art, the concepts in terms of which individual works of art are interpreted and evaluated. To provide more than general definition of the subject matter of aesthetics is immensely difficult. Indeed, it could be said that self-definition has been the major task of modern aesthetics. We are acquainted with an interesting, puzzling realm of experience, the realm of the beautiful, ugly, subtle, and the elegant, of taste, criticism, and fine art, and of contemplation, sensuous enjoyment, and charm. All these phenomena, we believe that similar principles are operative and that similar interests are engaged. If we are mistaken in this impression, we will have to dismiss such ideas as beauty and taste as having only peripheral philosophical interests. Alternatively, if our impression is correct and philosophy corroborates it, we will have discovered the basis for a philosophical aesthetics.
What is art? Art is the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form such as painting or sculpture, producing work to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. How does Plato define art? In the Republic, Plato says that art imitates the object and event of ordinary life. In other words, a work of art is a copy of a form. It is even more of an illusion than is ordinary experience. What is art according to Aristotle? Aristotle, art is an attempt to grasp at universal truths in individual happenstances. Aristotle looked a particular interest in tragedy through art, which he described as an imitation of action. It creates a treatment for the more unbearable passions we hold in our minds. Definition of art based on imitationism. Painting sculpture. Imitation of the appearance of people, things, events. Music. Imitation of the sounds of the universe. Dance. Imitation of the movements of animals, nature, or things. Literature. Imitation of life through language. Drama. Imitation of life through action and dialogue. What is the definition of beauty? According to Plato, forms are beautiful, the perfect being is beautiful, and among these forms, the form of good is the most beautiful. In Plato's philosophy, beauty has to do neither with art nor with nature. For Plato's beauty is the object of love. What did Socrates say about beauty? It was Socrates who first attempted to explore the definition of beauty, and he felt that aesthetic was a form of purity. His theory was, if you found pleasure in objects, they were to be found beautiful. This idea can be considered as a form of beauty.
Three approaches to aesthetics: the study of the aesthetic concepts, or more specifically, the analysis of the language of criticism, in which particular judgments are singled out and their logic and justification displayed. It is all about discovering the language of criticism, which be the way we speak, and it's also pointing to the judgments on another reason and also to justify the action has been shown whether it is right or it's reasonable. In his famous treatise on the sublime and beautiful 1757, Edmund Burke attempted to draw a distinction between two aesthetic concepts and by studying the qualities that they denoted, to analyze the separate human attitudes that are directed toward them. It is said that during his days, he studied the both aesthetic concept, which was Edmund Burke. He wants to prove something when it comes to human actions which affected by their emotions. Burke's distinction between the sublime and the beautiful was extremely influential, reflecting as it did the prevailing style of contemporary criticism. According to Edmund Burke, his study becomes effective to the people into their society because of his era, which is all about the style of contemporary criticism. Contemporary criticism, it is all about bringing together the influential creative writers around the world. In more recent times, philosophers have tended to concentrate of modern literary theory, namely those such as representation, expression, form, style, and sentimentality. As his time goes by, his study became an impact which led an opportunity to discover the reality more than what it already seems to their era. The study invariably has a dual purpose: to show how, if at all, these descriptions might be justified, and to show what is distinctive in the human experiences that are expressed in them. In short, his study has both purpose. First is to show that it is whether right or proven. Second is the discovery of his study on how the people in his era affected by their doings into their society.
A philosophical study of certain states of mind, responses, attitudes, emotions that are held to be involved in aesthetic experience. Thus, in the seminal work of modern aesthetics critic, Der Urteilskraft, 1790, The Critic of Judgment, Immanuel Kant located the distinctive features of the aesthetic in the faculty of judgment, whereby we take up a certain stance toward objects, separating them from our scientific interest and our practical concerns. The key to the aesthetic realms lies therefore in a certain disinterested attitude which we may assume toward any object and which can be expressed in many contrasting ways. More recently, philosophers, distrustful of Kant's story of the faculties, have tried to express the notions of an aesthetic attitude and aesthetic experience in other ways, replaying upon developments in philosophical psychology that owe much to Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, the phenomenologist, and Ludwig Wittgenstein, more precisely the writing of the philosophical investigations.
The philosophical study of the aesthetic object. This approach reflects the view that the problems of aesthetics exist primarily because the world contains a special class of objects towards which we react selectively and which we describe in aesthetic terms. The usual class singled out as prime aesthetic objects is that comprising work of art. All other aesthetic objects, landscapes, faces, object groups, and the like, tend to be included in this class only because, and to that extent that they can be seen as art, or so it is claimed. If we adopt such an approach, then there ceases to be a real distinction between aesthetics and the philosophy of art. And aesthetic concepts and aesthetic experience deserve their name through being. Respectively, the concept requires in understanding work of art and the experience provoked by confronting them. Thus, Hegel perhaps the major philosophical influence on the modern aesthetics, considered the main task of aesthetics to reside in the study of the various forms of art and of the spiritual content peculiar to each. Much of recent aesthetics has been similarly focused on artistic problems, and it could be said that it is now orthodox to consider aesthetics entirely through the study of art.
Aesthetics is the branch of philosophy concerned with the nature and appreciation of art, beauty, and good taste. It has also been defined as a critical reflection on art, culture, and nature. The word aesthetics derives from the Greek aesthetikos, meaning of sense perception. Philosophers believe learning what a certain group or cultures find aesthetically pleasing can help us better understand what they value, how they interact with each other, and make decisions. They are interested in learning more about the relationship between aesthetical appreciation and our emotional response. Aesthetics is a systematic investigation into the nature, essence, and purpose of art. It examines the assumption and principle and basics concept of art. Aesthetics or aesthetics is a sub-branch of axiology, and axiology is a branch of philosophy that is concerned with the study of values. Aesthetics is a core design principle that defines a design's pleasing qualities. In visual terms, aesthetics includes factors such as balance, color, movement, pattern, scale, shape, and visual weight. Designers use aesthetics to complement their design's usability and so enhance functionality with attractive layout. Simply put, aesthetics makes us happy. On an emotional level, they give us happiness and calm. They connect us to our ability to reflect on and appreciate the world around us, which in return give us feelings of contentment and hope.